Sarah Agroobi.
Yes.
Welcome to Pivot.
Thank you for having me.
We just met.
We literally did.
10 minutes ago. Okay, 5 minutes ago.
7.5 minutes ago. We'll go in the even. Yeah.
It's really lovely to meet you.
It's lovely to meet you too.
I've been following you on Instagram for a while. I started following your the Letters project, which we'll discuss, but something that you created on Instagram, and then I saw you as the founder, started following you, and I find what you say really inspirational.
Oh, thank you.
You teach me, and you're funny.
Oh, thanks.
You have great comedic timing.
I'll be here till Thursday.
And I just find myself watching something in the crowd. I'm like, like I just start chuckling to myself. So welcome.
Thank you very much.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I'm ready to take on this podcast.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
I'm under the assumption that your heritage, where you have lived, your life experiences, what you've chosen to do. So you are an artist, you're a researcher, you're an educator, and you also have the Letters project, just to sum up from what I've read and seen. So do you feel that all of this has made you who you are today as Sarah, or have you identified with Sarah a long time ago and you've been that person for a while?
Absolutely. I think the latter more than the former. I think the former is the byproduct of the latter is a byproduct of the former. And I guess vice versa. But for me, I've always been this way. I've always been sort of an old soul. I've followed the beat of my own drum. I've always felt that I had a greater purpose or a greater mission. And with that, with great power comes great responsibility. And I've just always enjoyed uncovering and calling into question so many things, my surroundings, the way that I view art, from my visual practice as an artist to my literary practice. And so I find so many aspects of my life are all intertwined, and the way that I express myself, or like the vehicle from which I depart from, is very much visual, cultural, research-based, all of that kind of stuff. So I think it was innately built in me from the womb. And then when I exited the womb, that's what happened.
It was Sarah.
It was the Sarahs.
I'm just going to dive right in. Tell me about a pivot that's had a significant impact on you and made you want to share the experience in this moment.
I can't say that there was a specific pivot, because I feel like a lot of experiences I've had in my life have been sort of I guess monkey vining from one experience to the next. And so I feel, in a way, whatever experience I'm having in that moment, the prerequisite of that was what amounted to whatever the future holds.
Yeah.
So for me, it's more about my attitude towards things. I always, I'm never afraid to deal with confrontation, and I'm never afraid to have the hard conversations. And I think from the time that I was young, I was always sort of, as one would say, like a gun for hire, where I would always fight for the underdog. And so I can recall, when you said, what's a pivotal moment? I can recall times in the playground where people were mean at school to random kids that they...
For no reason.
Yeah. And I'll stand up for them, or I'll stick up for them. And I just hate seeing injustice in the world. I guess it's like the Libra in me, but I just hate seeing that. So for me, I always felt that the way that I should carry my voice is being able to speak on behalf, or for, in some capacity, the marginalized and underrepresented, or the people that didn't have the voices for themselves. And if it means I have to be the sort of cultural martyr, then so be it. And so that's kind of how that's the pivot in a nutshell.
So you said fighting for the underdog, and when you see injustice, but for you, there must have been a moment where you felt there was injustice towards you.
Absolutely. That's literally, if I could write a Tinder profile description, it would be that. It was just like, I've been so misunderstood. But it is very true. And I think it's something that I've really kind of navigated, especially when we talk about the 12 brand archetypes. I'm very much the sort of the outlaw, or the one that sort of expresses freedom, very much so. And so when people see this kind of liberated way of existence in any capacity. It could be anything, just the way that you kind of carry yourself and the way that you talk. They want to sort of undercut and undermine you. And so that happened well within my like formative years. When I was like 2 years old, it would happen.
Give me an example.
I mean, I've had moments where, you know, kids at school would say things like you're too loud, or you're too, you talk too much, or they would take the qualities that I thought were the best things of myself, the fact that I was able to be articulate and vocal and very concise in the way that I spoke and very consistent. They would say, you're too loud, you're too chatty, you're so, you know, if I'm assertive, they would think I was bossy. If I was, you know, if I was a go-getter or disagreeable, they would say that I was problematic or difficult. So it was always taking things that I thought were actually great qualities to have, especially as a woman. They would just undermine them in any capacity. And a lot of the times it would come from girls themselves.
I was about to say, did this come more from males or more from females?
Mostly, I think, from women, which is really unfortunate. But then it made me really understand and navigate the sort of feminism sphere and how we self-identify and what is actual true feminism. And it's something that I'm very passionate about sort of vocalizing. So for me, it was a lot of the times from women. And I think that it just came from a place of insecurity. I've, you know, been told by many people, whether it's, you know, people that I've talked to in therapy or people I've talked to within the spiritual realm, or because I'm very interested in that as well.
Me too.
Yay! So we can
now I know
we can turn
now
to
I
that.
know.
Yeah, write that down. Check yourself, everyone. Yeah. Are you watching? Great.
1 minute, please.
But and so they've always said that you're, you know, Sarah, you're quite an old soul, and you know, you're not going to please everyone, and not everyone will be pleased.
Yeah.
But because your personality is so rooted in a sense of urgency and
action,
action, yeah, and just like a force, people are going to have a problem with it. And so I knew from a very young age that this was going to be the sort of battle of my life, being misunderstood and having to figure out how to navigate it, not rectify it, but navigate it.
I think, well, it's not about what I think. I'm going to ask what you think on this. But even me preparing for this, we'd only had a phone call before I just asked you if you'd like to come on. There wasn't much said pre that, or, you know, before we got here. I felt a bit nervous before I met you.
Really?
Yes.
Pray tell.
I'll tell you why. And I don't feel this makes me look good in any way. But
not at all, not at all.
But I have to be honest.
Yeah.
So you have a very strong voice and you're very intelligent. And for a lot of people, that can be intimidating, right? So I feel strong in myself. I feel smart in my own right. I am well read. But I still felt this nervousness within me, like, oh, I hope I say things that sound the right way. So this is, you know, little things that I was feeling as I was, but then met you. I feel I've known you for a very long time, just sitting with you. So do you feel that other people feel intimidated by you, men or women?
Yes, definitely.
And how does that affect you?
For the longest time, I thought it was a me problem, but it actually is a them problem, because I cannot change or rewrite my DNA or my personality or character design. It just doesn't work that way. Yeah. I've always been this way. And I mean, it's so fun. Thinking about a story, I recently, when my parents moved from Sharjah to Dubai, I was going through a bunch of the, you know, old family books and photo albums and things, that memorabilia that my mum kept, because my mum loves to do that. And so as I was kind of packing it up, I found a really interesting report card that a teacher wrote for me, actually two of them. One was from when I was, I think, 6, and the other one was from when I was about, I'd like to say, one was 5 and the other one was about 7.
Okay.
And it was when I was living in Brussels, and they both said that Sarah is a force to be reckoned with. She definitely follows the beat of her own drum, and she's a true leader. She is creative in the way that she speaks, and she carries herself with such a level of confidence that kids gravitate towards her and they want her to kind of lead the way. And I was like, from 5 years old, like, and it was just so strange for me to read that.
So it's true. You really did. You were this way for a very long time.
Yes. So I guess that's evidence, It
is, exactly.
Shout out to Miss Watson, who was my teacher, thanks so much. But
for the shining report card.
Really appreciate it. I'll add that to my CV.
But these things genuinely stick with you. I really feel that if a teacher especially kind of fills you with that confidence, and I don't know, they can play a huge role in your path. So teachers, I don't feel, get enough either credit or the opposite of that, because they need to be really careful.
Oh yes, of course. And they need to, I think what was beautiful about the way that they wrote my report card is that it wasn't kind of like your run of the mill, like this is how she is and we'll call it a day. There was like indented paragraphs into this report card, and they were coming at it from a sort of like behavioral psychology point of view, and from sort of general demeanor, and then also body language and social cues that maybe people wouldn't recognize. So
that's pretty good for the 90s.
Yeah, it was great. And I think that, because of that, it was a really great viewfinder into who I was as a child. And of course there's video footage and stuff, but when somebody's watching you sort of from the sidelines as you just move through this world, I think it was very beautiful. I kind of read it and I was like, it was the reassurance that maybe I didn't even realize I needed, which was, like, you're doing okay, you're doing great, this is who you are, and no one can shake that about you. And I loved it.
That's beautiful. That is really cute.
And I'm sorry to intimidate you. I'm very sorry.
No, you didn't. I'm not saying you intimidated me, but there was, I just, to be fair.
Yeah.
You're the first interview I've done of someone that I don't know.
Okay.
So I think that played a role as well.
Yes.
It's not just that, but you have a strong voice. You have an aura that's strong, and that is so positive. But when you don't know someone, or it can throw you off just slightly, because you're like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to get.
Yeah.
Oh, what if we clash? What if we have a confrontation? And not everyone's great with confrontation.
Yeah,
you're good at it,
yeah.
but not most people shy away from confrontation or run for the hills. So anyways, I love you.
Yeah, I love you too. We're best friends forever.
I know. So, okay. One of the things you posted about on Instagram that I want to go into is toxicity in society. We all face it. Men and women both face it in different ways. We all come across times in our life where you feel someone's trying to undercut you, someone's trying to badmouth you, bully, slander. It could be when you're younger, or it could be right now. And especially with social media, you have a presence on social media. I'm sure you face it a lot.
Yeah, all day.
I don't really have that
all
many
day,
followers.
All day.
Yeah. So what's interesting about the research and the data that you were presenting in your post was women will use words and reputation destruction to undercut other women, and men will lean more into aggression.
Yes.
So can you tell me a little bit more about this research, and then have you been through this, and give me a bit about you and your experience with this?
Definitely. I mean, most of the research are through the writings of either Jordan Peterson or Chris Williamson. In his podcast, he's mentioned this several times with different academics who have done scholarly research to indicate that first and foremost, women are they communicate to build relationships, whilst men really communicate to solve problems. And so it kind of it's an interesting perspective to see how men and women differ when it comes to conflict resolution, how they deal in sort of regular dynamics, one-on-one dynamics, or even in group dynamics. And so for me, when I became aware of the fact that when dealing with women versus dealing with men, it's a very different ball game, and there are very different rules. And so with women, I think a lot of it comes from, we can put internalized misogyny on the back end for now, but it comes from a deep-seated social programming of feeling a sense of lack, a sense of unworthiness, and that sense of lack manifests in ways in which we can understand vulnerability. But the result of vulnerability, or the way that we unpack vulnerability, can come from places of insecurity, places of feeling not socially or culturally stable, feeling like somebody is much better than you. So you need to undercut or undermine their existence in order to make you feel more important.
Yeah.
It's a process called leveling, right? So you either undercut somebody to bring them down to your level, or you raise yourself to meet that person on that level.
Oh, interesting. I like that, leveling.
Yeah. So with leveling, it can be men or women, but often at times, because women communicate in order to build those relationships, they already have sort of a head start in the race.
Yeah.
To want to figure out how to disarm and dismantle another woman if they are competing against them. So it's either by way of reputation, as we said, reputation destruction, stereotyping, name calling, backbiting. It takes various different forms.
Okay. And tell me about a time or an experience that you've gone through this, and what have you done?
Oh, girl, where do we even start?
Yeah.
Where can we even start? I mean, I can give you like 7,000 for men and women, but for women, I can give you an overarching experience that has happened for most women that I've come into.
That's a good one, because I feel like that will relate to people listening.
So gear up, boys and girls, because it's going to be fun.
Wish I brought popcorn.
We needed popcorn, coffee, whatever it is.
I need something.
But for me, I've been in many different dynamics with women where they have chosen to invalidate the way that I speak and the way that I conduct myself in order to disarm my confidence. And so they'll do it in a way by being like, oh, you're, wow, she thinks she's so intelligent. What, do you think you're better than everyone else? Wow, you're so smart. Like, look at you being so smart. Or look at you. I remember once, someone saying to me that like, oh, Sarah just keeps talking and I wish she would just stop. And
someone you knew?
Yeah, of course. And people saying things like, they bring up pretty privilege and, issues of like, oh, the way that she dresses and conducts herself, that is an indicator for how she's become successful. Like it plays a major factor.
What do you mean?
So the way that we can understand my kind of, I guess, professional development or creative development has been off of my own merit and off my own, doing. But if people want to invalidate it, they'll find the first thing that they can find problematic, which is either the way that I look or the way that I carry myself, and say that we're going to foreground that reason to invalidate your creative pathway or your professional journey. So they might say like, oh, she
only got there because
she's she's beautiful, or she conducts herself in a manner, she's quite flirtatious she's a vixen, she's very vivacious, she's this, she's that, and they can't seem to differentiate, which is a big one, between confidence and arrogance, or from having high self-esteem versus being big-headed or full of yourself. And the ones that I kind of put on the right side versus the left is, if you're going to feel like somebody's arrogant, it's usually very self-serving. It's obviously to the detriment of somebody else, and it benefits no one but yourself. And if people know me, and the people who do know me, that I always operate from a place of selflessness. I always put people before myself. That's kind of like what I do. It's like my shtick. That will also go in my Tinder profile. So,
I think that you're talking more data. Mm-hmm. And I would say on a spiritual level that when someone's shining, people who are not shining don't want them to shine. Mm-hmm. So it's also a frequency thing. So you're operating at a high frequency and from a place of internal alignment, and they are not. Mm-hmm. So they don't like it. They don't like what they're seeing. It's making them so uncomfortable within themselves that they have to spew out something to make themselves feel bigger.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of it has to do with, I sit very comfortably in both my divine masculine and divine feminine energy. I can be, soft and gentle and chaotic, but then I can also be assertive and compartmentalize. I can do all of those things, and I'm comfortable in both.
That's great, because that's actually quite difficult.
I
Most
think
people
so.
are not very balanced in their masculine and feminine.
Absolutely.
Usually they're leaning more towards one, and you can see it quite evidently.
Yeah, definitely. And what's interesting, just to kind of touch base on what you were saying about these women, for those experiences that I've had with women, I've also had amazing experiences where those very women have kind of come back to me and said, which has happened. I mean, I can name a woman in the art scene. She, I think she was going through her own kind of spiritual awakening. She was having her own, I guess, self-actualization and reconciliation of
growth.
who she is. Yeah. And she decided, she's like, I really want to have a conversation with you because I misjudged you because I was projecting my insecurities onto you. Like, I didn't feel beautiful or pretty or had a nice body, and I felt you were the definition of that. And I was like, why does she have that and I can't have it? And now she's one of my best friends. Like, I love her dearly, and she said,
that's exactly why we're here. That's it. I feel that is the crux. That is literally what we want to convey.
Absolutely.
Or at least I want that. I mean, I'm so happy I'm talking to you and you said something like that, truly, because that's the point. That is the point. It's realizing where you probably have made a mistake, or you did something that wasn't true to who you really are. And we're all human beings made of absolute love. So that's amazing.
Yeah, it was great. And I've done it myself too.
And she's
as well.
still your friend.
She's my friend. And I feel like I've kind of reconciled with a lot of people, because people who know me know that I do this. Like, if someone has an issue with me, I'll confront them head on. Like, I will not pussyfoot or tiptoe around anybody's feelings. Like, let's have a conversation about it. And interestingly enough, when I was doing my undergrad, there was a time where it was very cliquey. And there was this girl that everyone was kind of banning against and kind of being really mean and disrespectful towards. And I remember a few years later, it's like, I'm really sorry for what happened. And I'm really sorry that I partook in that, and that I was fueling the fire rather than de-escalating the situation. And, and she's a lovely person, and I still communicate with her, and it's just like happy days, peace and love.
That is really good. I mean, it takes a mature human being to do that, and also somebody that cares about what the other person thinks and feels. And I feel it's easy to just forget about it, but deep down it's still there. It's still in your mind. You know what you've done.
Yeah.
So
and you have to have a modicum of self-awareness.
Yeah.
It has to. And unfortunately, not that many people are self-aware or are interested in shining the spotlight onto themselves and being like, okay, what have I done wrong?
I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
They don't want to put the spotlight on themselves, and being in denial is a lot easier. It's much easier to just be like, no, well, that me, and point and blame. It's the blame game.
Blame game.
But we are pretty much responsible for everything that happens in our lives. And once you acknowledge that, which is very hard, because when really horrible things have happened, you can't see where you would have been accountable or responsible. But that's the self-awareness that needs to be, I don't know, like light bulb on,
like, let's foreground that.
I think I feel like that needs guidance, and that needs, you can work with people for that, because I don't think doing it on your own is that easy.
Yeah, I agree. And but I think that brings up I guess, if we were to talk about the positives and the negatives of always being, I guess, aligned, as you said, or balancing the divine feminine, often at time you become the lone wolf. You kind of operate at a different frequency where you can be really lonely at times. And I think that that's something that people who are like that have to also navigate, and it's tough.
I agree with that. So, okay. The Letters Project.
Yes.
This is something that you created.
I did.
How long ago did you create this?
I would say the early stages of 2017.
Okay, so approximately what, like 3, 4, 5, 6 years. Okay.
Yeah.
So the Letters Project is anonymous letters from people around the world who write in with issues, challenges, problems that they may be facing.
Yes.
And you want to highlight people from marginalized communities who can share what they're going through without ever worrying that anyone will know who they are. And so, okay, why do you find it important to share these stories? And why do you find it important to share these stories from a marginalized community?
I think it's interestingly enough, the process of anonymity creates that feeling of marginalization, when in actual fact it could be the majority that we're referring to, but we just don't know, because when you submit a story, you don't realize that actually maybe you're not alone in it. Yeah. Maybe there are more people like you. Maybe there are more like-minded individuals.
It's a guarantee that there's more people like you.
And then, but also it brings up the conversation, and it really foregrounds this type of social discourse that needs to happen. So the stories are, far and wide. They tap into all aspects of society, and they come from all over the world. And so I find there's a beauty in relinquishing the author of the story and actually just highlighting just the story itself.
Yes.
So the author doesn't have to play a role, an active role in the narration of the story, but a very passive role. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I think that this is so important is because a lot of the times we don't know how to deal with our own problems and our own issues, and sometimes we just want to come at it from a position of neutrality, however which way that's going to manifest. Yeah. And I've always been the type of person to be a listener. Like I do talk a lot, but friends of mine will tell you that I'm an active and very present listener, and I help with people's problems, and I really burden myself with people's issues. Yeah. And so I found almost like an extension of how to do that. And I think the Letters Project is an extension of that.
Are you able to give any of these people that write in, because obviously they're anonymous, so I'm assuming you don't have contact details or any way of reaching them, but would you, I'm not sure if you do this, so I'm not sure if I've missed something.
Sure.
But do you provide any tools for these people?
Yes. So behind the scenes, it depends on the letter. It depends on the situation or the circumstance. It's not every letter. I would say it's fewer letters than there are the majority. So I would say we have people writing in, and then they would send a message to me privately and say, I'm the one who wrote this letter. And so we'd have to verify it by going through, okay, what time did you write it? When was this? All of that kind of stuff, because obviously there's no way of tracking the individual. And then once we've verified and it's gone through this kind of vetting process, there are, lawyers involved in the back end of things. Oh. There are people that can help with mental health. We've got friends that can recommend therapists or...
That's amazing, because I was always wondering that from when I started. I'm like, I wonder if this story that I just read had any access to, whether it be a therapist or, someone to help them, because they seemed like they were in some sort of domestic violence, case.
But a lot of the times, which is what it's much more serving, and it gives more credit to the actual people, the TLP members, is that oftentimes we just facilitate and we don't have to do anything other than posting the letter, because what happens is the people come forward. And so a lot of the times when there's an issue dealing either with domestic violence or issues regarding mental health, therapists will write in, they'll tag themselves, or they'll tag in people that they think are important. And then the reader or the author will now have a database in front of them in the comment section of who they can contact. And as far as I'm aware, because people I've met who know that I'm the founder of the Letters Project, they'll say, oh, I met my husband on the Letters Project, or I met my boyfriend, I met my girlfriend on the Letters Project, or I met my group of like-minded individuals.
That's amazing. Yeah. So it's like great. A nice community that you're growing.
Definitely. And I think I've said this on another podcast, and so because it really touched me, and it always gets me really emotional. But like, I met somebody in where was it? I'm just trying to remember. It was in Bahrain. I was there just visiting a bunch of friends, and I was at a dinner, and there was a person sitting a few seats down from me. And all of a sudden I kind of look to my right, and I see two people kind of whispering and pointing to me. And so I had no idea what was going on. And then my friend who was sitting said, oh, that's the founder of the Letters Project. And so there was this gentleman who was sitting next to her, and his face lit up, and he just ran. He ran across the entire end of the table, came running to me and just grabbed my hands shaking, and just was like, and he just started welling up with tears. And he said, the Letters Project saved my life.
Oh my God.
And it was like, and I always get emotional about it, but it's true.
I'm about to get emotional too. That's insane.
And I just felt like, he said, like, the Letters Project made me feel like I wasn't alone. And I found people that felt the same way as me. And I didn't feel like I should be here anymore.
Yeah.
And the Letters Project saved it. So for me, that was the biggest gift I could do for anyone. Because at the end of the day, I don't take credit for it. Letters Project is completely run by individuals who are actively choosing to highlight stories that maybe people aren't comfortable with, normalize conditions that they maybe didn't think that were important, but above everything, they're willing to have the conversation and they're willing to help. And I think that that's the best thing that someone can ask for.
You should take credit for it.
No, I refuse.
It's yours.
I refuse to take credit. It's never been, and this is something that which is why for a long time I took a step back and didn't identify as the founder of the Letters Project, it's never been about me or anything that I've done. I am just merely the facilitator amongst a few people in the back end as well.
Well, you have a lot of people that are grateful for you.
I'm sure, but there are also people that aren't, and I think that you have to take the good with the bad.
Yeah.
And I'm prepared to be the person, if they need somebody to be that person, I'm prepared to do that because I've been doing it my entire life. And so this is, a scratch, as Mercutio would say in Romeo and Juliet. So, yeah.
Would you like a tissue?
I know, I'm good.
Okay. They were about to fall out of your eyes, and then they kind of went back in.
And they went back in, sucked it back in. But I'm a Cancer moon, so...
Ooh, highly emotional.
Very. So you can tell it's just like out,
So Libra, Cancer. Oh, interesting.
Libra, so that's...
What's your rising?
So yeah, my rising is Taurus, and obviously my star sign is Libra, and so I'm double Venus, which is Venusian, like a double Venusian goddess, which is basically like ruling planet for Libra and for Taurus is Venus.
Okay.
So I like seeing beauty in the world. I love beautiful things. I love to express and project beauty, whether that be in arts or culture.
I see it in your hair.
Oh,
With this Pantene ad in front of me, I see it like
this is
bouncing waves.
Yeah, there's times where I'm just like, why don't I just cut it all off and just call it?
No, don't do that, please. It's beautiful hair. Just don't touch the hair.
I gotta like trademark this.
Okay, internalized misogyny is one of your last posts, which I saw, and I wanted to tap into this because I feel it's. A lot of people don't even realize that they're doing it. And this is because of social programming and growing up maybe in a household where it was programmed into the people raising you. And I'm not really talking about the Middle East. I'm talking about the world.
Everybody.
I'm talking about everybody. This isn't something I personally grew up with. But now that I'm in the Middle East, I see it around me, and it's subtle. It's not in your face offensive. There are just, certain subtle sentences or actions, little things, which as somebody that didn't grow up experiencing that, I can see it quite quickly and from a mile away. So elaborate a little bit more on your post and internalized misogyny, and then I'll ask you a few more questions.
So the way that I see internalized misogyny playing out in society is, as you said, they're sort of microaggressions that are very subtle and very nuanced, and they come out in moments where almost when you least expect them, because there is a certain arrogance that comes with internalized misogyny, that it's an expectation, and the expectation is often at the detriment of women or the way that women are being perceived, in favor of men's hyper-masculine, hyper-machismo attitude. And so it will come out in ways like where men will have moments to speak or articulate how they feel, and women can't interrupt. So, you'll have women that will say, oh, no, you should let him speak. He knows what he's talking about. Or I'd rather trust him because he knows the back end of things, or he's got more experience, or I trust him. And the truth of the matter is that maybe times that is true. But I think the way that internalized misogyny manifests in I guess, whether it's regionally and then internationally, is that it's ancestral.
Yeah.
It comes from the sort of ancestral lineage of feeling that this social programming has to be passed down generationally, and that there is no breaking of these ancestral traumas. And so when I see it either being manifested in, you know, great aunts or great, you know, grandmothers or mothers or whatnot, for them, it is so normalized that they don't even realize that the way that they are speaking is advocating for a certain viewpoint in favor of that at the expense of their own thoughts.
Yes.
And I think that's where it becomes problematic. But I don't, when you catch it out also, people can point out, well, you're just over exaggerating, or they gaslight you and they think that, oh, this is like just a chance for you to feel like liberated in your thought. And I'm like, well, it's always in the nuance. And I think people fail to recognize nuance most of the time when it comes to these conversations.
Is there any example you can give from your own experience of experience?
So many.
Okay.
So many. One of the biggest examples is any time, and it's something that I said in my video, that especially coming from women, that anytime there is a circumstance where women is in a position of being disempowered, whether it's, you know, walking down the street, and I've had this for myself where I've walked down the street and I'm wearing something that someone would be considered too showy, the first thing that they ask, if I have unwanted attention, that it was my fault, and I should be shamed, and I should internalize that shame.
Or you were asking for it.
I was asking for it. It was my fault. I should have expected. I should have been wiser. And so there's the experience is so fractured, and it touches on so many different moving parts, like whether it's shame, insecurity, all of these different things. And it's all kind of like mashed together in this one kind of statement, which ties itself in a beautiful bow of internalized misogyny. And when it comes from women who are supposed to advocate for you and protect you, the first thing that you think of is, you know, well, if you're not with me, then you're against me. Or if you don't protect me, then you want to hurt me. And so I find that it comes a lot of the times from women.
Which is ironic. I find that really upsetting that it's coming more like it's more acceptable if it's coming from a guy. It's less acceptable for me that it comes from women. And how do we wake them up and make them see? How do you open their eyes to the fact that this is programming and not, well, what do we do?
That's a difficult question to ask, and also a heavy burden to bear, because I don't think it's a click of a finger. I think it's just being able to break those chains of trauma, ancestral trauma which
is a choice, which is something that you have to want to do personally and within yourself.
But also you have to have a modicum of self-awareness to do that. So, I mean, if you're speaking to a group of people that have no interest in elevating their consciousness, in becoming self-aware or enlightened beings, then it's not going to happen.
Exactly.
So that's why places like the Letters Project or creating these videos, it plants that seed of an alternative way of thinking, a counter narrative to the existing one. And that's what I think is the main, I guess, goal or aim of these types of platforms or these engagements that I have online.
Okay. What is a book that you would want viewers or listeners after listening to this to go and buy immediately and start reading?
Oh, there's so many books.
Why? So choose a book and tell me why you want people to go away and read this book.
Do I have to give one, or can I give like several?
You can give two. Okay, three.
Okay, three. First book I would say is The Mask of Masculinity by Lewis Howes. It's a great book and a great read on the different masks that men wear in order to kind of unburden them from their own, I guess, misogyny, chauvinism, whatever you say. I really enjoyed it. Another one is The Chimp Paradox. It's a great way of understanding our logical and rational brain versus the emotional brain, and how the brain and the
I'm gonna write it down.
the Chimp Paradox.
I'll put these in the captions so people.
Have you read The Chimp Paradox? The back end? Anyone? No.
Man in the corner.
Yeah.
Nope. Okay.
So The Chimp Paradox, and the last one is Oof. Can I say 4?
Yes.
Okay. The third one would be Why Won't You Apologize? It's a great read.
Okay.
It's a book on understanding the complexities of apology and whether you want to seek restitution, whether you enjoy apologies that come with like an act of service in some capacity, and that, you know, how can you differentiate and decipher a true, genuine apology from one that is just a sweeping statement?
Oh, I want to read that.
It's great. It's a great read. And then the last one, which is very different from the 3 that I've mentioned, is Dancing with the Gods. It's a book about, it's hard to describe it, but basically if you're the person that's sort of in a creative rut, or you don't understand why you do what you do or what your true passions are, by the time you end the book, you will remember why it is you started this in the
that's
first
amazing.
place.
You know what, that book, was that your 4th?
Yeah, that's my 4th.
Okay, so you're done.
Yes.
So the book that that reminded me of, it's more of a course than a book, but have you ever heard of The Artist's Way?
Yes.
So
I got that actually for Christmas.
That's so funny.
Yes.
I bought that for my sister-in-law and my mum and my sister for Christmas.
Yes. Shout out to Michael Gormley who gave
you
it
do
to me
it?
for Christmas. I'm in the process.
So that was, to be fair, I only got about 3/4 of the way through and then I stopped. So I actually want to go back to the beginning and start all over again.
As one should, yeah.
It was one of the most eye-opening things that I did, and the tools and practices that they made us do each week, I'm still doing.
Amazing.
And it's changed how I start my day, because the way you start your day is vital.
Absolutely.
And it made, so actually I can explain. Did you hear about morning pages in it?
Yes.
So the morning pages part,
Yes.
if I could give the listeners and viewers something to take away, is morning pages. So you basically write down what was it, 3 or 4 pages every single morning. And if you don't know what to write down on these pages, you can write your name 150 times on each page. You just have to write, and eventually you end up writing. It's funny because I didn't really know what to write the first time. Well, that's a lie. I knew what to, I knew exactly what to write.
Lick that pen and write it down. Yeah. Absolutely.
But I kept writing. And then you realize that whatever you're writing is what needed to come out of your conscious mind in order for you to start your day in a fresh way. Because if it doesn't come out, then that's lingering at the top or the forefront of your mind for the entire day. And you can't get to the next level of where you need to go.
Absolutely.
So your 4 books is that one. My one is Everyone by The Artist's Way. My friend Karina told me about that book, and it really was a life changer. So... okay, there are multiple cities that you've lived in since, I mean, when you sent me your bio, it had said around 2008 you were in Brussels.
Was I? Yes.
So Brussels.
Sorry, I did. There's just so many. I can't remember. Track back.
So Brussels and then Rome, and then you moved back here to Sharjah, and then you were in London.
No, so shall I just like map it
Give
out?
me a timeline of where the cities you've been in.
So born in Brussels till I was 8, and then after 8 until I was 14, I moved to Turkey, and then from 14 till about 16, 17, I was in Sharjah, and then I was back in Brussels for the final year of sixth form, and then I went and did my undergrad in Sharjah, and then I went and did an Erasmus in Rome, and then I moved to Abu Dhabi, and then I moved to London. And then I was back in Abu Dhabi and Dubai.
So you're now currently back in Abu Dhabi?
Yes.
And what is your favorite city to live in?
I feel like everybody asks me that question. And I was just like, I don't even know.
It's hard to say one. I can imagine that it's hard to say
I
one.
loved living in Rome. It was fantastic. I feel like in another life I was probably like, you know, Italian or something, because just love pastiche. I call pasta pastiche, but I love pasta. I just love the food. I lived in this place called Trastevere, which is kind of like the cool, hip area. Really interesting restaurants and lounges and things like that, and it's very youthful. So
I wish I'd known about it when I went to Rome. I was at the fountain throwing my coin in,
Trastevere is
and going to every touristic possible restaurant that existed.
Trastevere. Yeah, it's amazing.
Next time.
So lovely. And then when you're all young and you're still like, you know, uni students, everyone's going out and we're going karaoke and just like, and Yeah, people,
fun.
those who know. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I do love London. Like London will always have a special place in my heart. I mean, Southwest is just the way to go. So yes.
You sound pretty English. I'm sure there's some sort of a relationship there. But okay, so what do you want viewers to really take away from this interview?
From as in from what we've discussed, or for myself?
No, it's you can go anywhere you want with this answer. It's not just from what we've discussed. What would you like them to leave, and how do you want them to remember you?
How do I want them to remember me? I think that they know that I do things with honesty and integrity, and I carry myself in a consistent and I conduct myself in an orderly manner. Mm-hmm. And people who know me know the true me, and I think it feeds into the insecurity I had from from when I was a child, that I'm not what you think I am. Just get to know me. Send me a message, sit down and have a conversation with me. I guarantee you that we have more in common than you think. Mm-hmm. And I think I would like people to get to know the human aspect of who I am, and to know that what they think about me is just preconceived notions of whatever insecurity they think that is being projected through me. I'm just a vessel. I'm not, and also I'm nothing special. Like, I am a human that does everything like everybody else does, and that we are all interconnected in a really important and valid way. And I hope that this interview gives but a mere like a sliver of, or a slither of hope in the general direction of knowing that, you know, we're just all just trying to keep calm and carry on and live our lives.
Keep calm and carry on.
Yep.
And I feel, don't judge a book by its cover.
Don't judge 4 books by their cover.
Don't judge 5 books.
5 books by their cover. Yeah. Absolutely. Yes.
Well, it was amazing to have you. This was one of the nicest conversations I've had, and you've taught me a lot. You've taught me, not just today.
And you've taught me a lot too.
Oh.
Goes both ways.
I feel like we can finish this and go and have a coffee and continue on the spiritual route a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Because I feel there's a lot to dig into there. But it was amazing to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I hope you come back.
Absolutely. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.